Hello and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about two young girls. One was 16 and one was 12. They went missing in Marathon, Florida in 1974, and they were both around the same height and weight, it sounds like. They went to a movie theater, got dropped off by their parents. They were supposed to go watch a movie, and they said they might have went hitchhiking to go to a party, and some say they might have gotten in a white or a yellow van, and they were never seen or heard from again. So, and it says somebody must know something. So if you know something, these young girls have apparently lost their lives because nobody's ever heard from them since. So we're going to assume that they're not alive anymore. Their family has no closure. They never got to have children. They never got to have grandchildren. They never got to graduate. They never got to watch their children graduate. So if you think that you know something and you think maybe your loved ones are more important and you don't want to come forward, you can remain anonymous. But these girls are more important and their loved ones need closure. Or if you know something and you think it's insignificant, or your mother or your grandmother knew something and they thought it was insignificant, you should come forward and let people know because it seems like somebody has to know. The movie theaters back then it was a thing. There was a lot of people at the movie theater, I'm sure, because it wasn't like today, when there were so many different things to do, you know, and everybody went to the movie theater. So she's been missing. There's different dates. Some say August, some say September, and it says that she was 16 years old, 5'2", 100 pounds, and it talks about what she was wearing. She had brown hair, green eyes, and she had a scar on her left eyebrow. Her ears were pierced, and her nicknames were Cindy and Cindy Robin. And Cynthia and her friend Teresa, who was known as Terry, were dropped off at the now defunct Marathon movie theater in Marathon, Florida on August 20th, 1974. And they plan to hitchhike to a party that day. Neither of the girls have been seen again. And you got to realize in 1974, you're going to hitchhike. You trust people. People didn't lock their doors back then. Everybody would go outside and hang out and roast marshmallows and play hide and seek and chase lightning bugs or whatever. But you weren't afraid to get a ride and hitchhike because you trusted people. And so they would have never thought that something bad was going to happen to them. And Cynthia's loved ones describe her as a typical teen who enjoyed water skiing in 1974. She had moved from her mother's Portsmouth, Virginia home to Florida to be closer to her father and older brothers. She had a history of dropping out of sight for a few days at a time, and because of this, investigators initially believed she and Teresa had run away from home. However, Teresa had no history as a runaway, and her family stated this would be completely uncharacteristic of her behavior. Investigators no longer believe either girl left on her own volition. The police file for the girls, it was destroyed in a fire sometime after they vanished. And Cynthia has four brothers, one of whom is now deceased, and a sister. And her case and Teresa's remain unsolved. And that's like an open wound for their family. And here's Teresa Armando Alfonso. It says she was Hispanic, but she looks like she's either mixed races or partially Hispanic. She looks white, so I don't know in the photos. So she was born in 1961. She was only 12 years old, and she was about the same height or a little taller than the 16-year-old. And it says she was 5'2" to 5'5". It looks like they're guessing 115 to 120 pounds. They weren't sure. It talks about what she was wearing. She had light brown hair and brown eyes. She had a small gap between her upper front teeth at the time that she disappeared, and a small scar below her buttocks. She also had a tonsillectomy. Her ears were pierced. Her nickname was Terry, and some agencies spell her first name with an H, Teresa, and her last name Alfonso with a Z instead of an S, or they refer to her as Terry Riggs. So, and it talks about them being dropped off at the movie theater and never being seen again. So, somebody has seen something, somebody knows something. It just doesn't make any sense for nobody to have seen anything. It says her mother's still alive, as are many of her siblings. And Teresa was a student at Stanley Switlick Elementary School in 1974 and lived with her family on 92nd Street. It says Teresa had no history as a runaway, and her family never believed she had done that. That she was very timid and shy, and she wasn't having problems at home. And that they don't think she would have gone anywhere with somebody she didn't know. So, and here's pictures of Teresa, and I don't know which ones are age progressed and what she would have looked like if she had gotten older, or if she's still alive. And then this describes her race as white or Hispanic or a mixed race. So she's age 12, 5'2" to 5'5", it says, and this one lists her as 120 to 138 pounds. So, and then there's another one that lists her as like 100, 115 pounds. So it seems like the girls were about the same height and weight, even though they were different ages. So, and they were dropped off by Teresa's mother at the movie theater on 63rd Street. However, they never made it inside the theater. And they said it was the first time they were allowed to go by themselves, and that they were last seen leaving the theater, which today is a storage facility, and one of their friends saw that they were picked up by a white or yellowish van. I mean, do you know who had a white or yellowish van that would have been in the area? Did they talk to the guy? Did they know who it was? Maybe they talked to somebody and thought it was somebody. I don't know. But it's really sad. And Teresa was only a seventh grader, and Gooding was a junior at Marathon Junior High School. So, and this is the name is case number for Teresa is 5785. And now we're going to look at an unidentified person, a Jane Doe, that was found in Fort Lauderdale, Broward County, Florida. And they discovered her in January of 1988, and they believe she was died or was killed because it was a homicide, 1985 to 1986, and she was about the same age as those girls. She was between 11 and 25 years old. A white female, only 5 foot to 5'4", with brown hair, and they don't know the color of her eyes. And she had osteoarthritic changes were seen in her hips. And previous injuries to her lower back and pelvic region were identified. It is unknown if these injuries are a result of a traumatic event or repetitive activity. And that the wording to that just sounds horrific. Horrific. And she had at least one dental filling, and I don't know when she got it or what happened. But the victim was located near the intersection of 18400 Weston State Road 84 on a canal bank in an unincorporated area of Fort Lauderdale. So she was just tossed out like the trash along the side of the road. They must have pulled over enough to hide the body and maybe thinking somebody wouldn't see it. So, and they didn't find it till 1988. So she looks so much like like one of the girls, so she reminded me. So I thought I would mention that. If you know who this could be, sometimes people get reported as a runaway, or they don't actually get reported as missing, and there's a miscommunication. So if you know you have a family member or loved one that went missing, and you don't see their case listed, and you don't know what happened to them, and they were never heard from again, you need to get in there and let people know. Let the authorities know. And if you know anything about any of these cases, you should let somebody know. So we're going to look at Cynthia Robin Gooding. And here she is, 16 years old, 5'2", 100 pounds, brown hair, and green eyes. So we're going to look at another missing person. Another Jane Doe who she had light brown, reddish blonde hair and blue to hazel eyes. So this one was discovered in 1974, 5'2", 110, so age 14 to 19 years old. So she is about the same age as a girl, about the same height and same weight as those girls. And she was killed in 1974, days before she was found, south of Santa Fe, New Mexico. They said she had a recognizable face. They don't have the other pictures. The authorities might have post-mortem photos, and she was strangled to death. And So, and it says she was located just south of Santa Fe, New Mexico, and she was just off the highway, and a Colorado couple, they stopped to pick some nuts, and there was no clothing on the body. So she was tossed out near the highway on the side of the road somewhere, like the trash, like the other girl was. So, except this one was killed in 1974, so you just don't know. So if you know who any of these could be, or if you have any information about any of these cases, you should let the authorities know. So you just got to look, these young, beautiful young girls, 5'2". They only weighed about 100 pounds, so they were very petite young girls, 12 years old, 16 years old. They had their whole lives ahead of them. You know, they wanted to go to school, maybe graduate, maybe they would have went to college, maybe they wouldn't have, maybe who knows what they would have done. They probably would have had families, they would have had children, they would have had grandchildren, but they're not able to do that anymore. So if you have any information, you can remain anonymous. So even if you think it's insignificant, you should let somebody know. Maybe you were scared then to tell somebody, but maybe you're not now, you know, but remain anonymous. And this right here talks about these two young girls, one 16, one 12 years old, Cindy and Terry, and they went to the movie theater and they were dropped off by a parent, and the theater was on 63rd Street, and the parent thought they were going to go see the movie, Jonathan Livingston Seagull, and the girls have never been heard from since, and one was a junior at Marathon High School at the time, and the other one was only a 7th grader. And it talks about their description. One had brown hair and brown eyes, and it talks about what they were wearing. And it says, you know, that it's so strange that two girls could simply vanish without somebody knowing something about their disappearance, you know. Especially being that they were at the movie theater. People would have noticed them. They would have noticed each other. How are they going to slip away without anybody noticing? So somebody out there knows something, and we're hoping that they will come forward now and help us solve this mystery, it says. It says anybody that has information should contact this, and it may not be the same. The detective may be a different name, but there's a phone number and you can remain anonymous. So if you know something, you should contact them and let them know about any of these cases, whether it is Teresa, or it's Cynthia, or it's the unidentified females, or anything. You know, if you know something, you should come forward. You shouldn't take some secrets, you shouldn't take to your grave. Sometimes you just got to come forward and tell somebody. Anyway, I'm just a small channel, and I appreciate my viewers, and it's so upsetting to me that this happens to people, and that it's still unsolved and nobody knows what happened. We shouldn't have all these unsolved cases still, but anyway, please feel free to leave comments. I thank you so much for tuning in, and don't forget to pray for their family and their loved ones. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have a great day. Bye-bye.